join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Welcome back to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. It's a big week ahead for Forest, a midweek Premier League match under the lights. Another away day, and this time it's a trip to Molineux to face Wolves. There's always something about those fixtures where you feel anything can happen, and Forest fans will be travelling with that mix of hope, nerves, and probably absolute belief that we will come away with all 3 points. Wolves are yet to win it all this season, and the Reds will be determined that their hosts will have to wait even longer to notch a Premier League victory. I'm Greg Oram, along with Richard Spray. And with us, it's Danscape, and of course, Raf the Random Pundit. We're going to get into all of it. The questions around the lineup, who needs to step up, and what kind of Wolves side we think we're walking into. Plenty to talk about, plenty to get stuck into. This is the Wolves v Nottingham Forest match preview.
Gibbs White's got room to charge into. Through the Wolves half he goes with Elanga to his right. Here is Elanga just inside the box. Back to yes! He's done it already! Gibbs White scores!
Short and sweet and to the point for this one, because we are going to try and whiz through it. Just a quick takeaway from last season's match when Gibbs White linked up with Anthony Elanga to score the opening goal in, I think it's inside 5 minutes or something like that. So we'll be looking for more of that this time round. Welcome along to one and all. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Please let us know you're here. Drop yourselves in and we'll give you some shout outs as we normally do. Like and subscribe, please, chaps and chapesses, if that's even a thing. Talking Reds is on X. It's on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. We're not on LinkedIn. But you can give us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Details later about the shirt giveaway. If you haven't caught how to enter, I'll tell you a bit later on. But we are previewing Wolves against Forest. And Richard Spray, how are you feeling about this one? We need to bounce back, don't we?
We certainly do, and we know bounce back ability is our thing, as you've quoted many times, Greg. I think the weird thing is I felt very confident before, after the Liverpool match, and then obviously what happened with Brighton, and my confidence has waned just a little bit. But it's also this idea that Wolves are just, I think, in a position where they're just going to take every match like they have nothing to lose here, and they're just going to play at full tilt. And so I'm kind of concerned that we might take it lightly and we might get a little bit, what does Pete Blackburn say? We might get a little bit too, I don't know if it's enabled or what the word is that he typically uses, but it's sort of in that mindset of like, gosh, guys, just don't switch off for a second. Cause I just fear that this is one of those matches we go with an ultra confident and then find ourselves in a bit of a bind, 1-0 down or something unexpectedly. So got to stay switched on. It seems like Deitch has got them in that mindset based off of what he said. So I'm confident he won't allow that to happen, but there's still that just grain of fear as a Forest fan from past history, right? So, yeah. But other than that, not doing all right, doing good.
Excellent. Ian says, good morning from a chilly Toronto. And Steph Wilkinson is back from her trip. She was over at the City Ground for the Malmo game. She had a pick in the dugout and it was pitch side for warm-ups, seats along the tunnel. Taiwo said hello. Everything was magic. Steph, great to hear about your trip. And I can also announce that Steph has agreed to join Richard and I for a one with that we will be doing maybe just inside the new year now, if I'm honest with you, Steph. I said to come back to you and we'll firm things up offline. But Steph will be joining us for one with at some point. Brucey says, good morning, gents. Feels like Toronto in Texas this morning. And Ian says, yeah, we had a little sprinkle of the white stuff overnight. Okay, then. That sounds like we could be leaning into a little bit more than we bargained for there, Ian. All right. Ant says, Charlotte feels like Toronto and Texas too. The Americans and the Canadians are talking about the weather. Let's talk about Forest then, Danscape. You feeling optimistic that we can get back to winning ways on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I'm still confident that we are a better team throughout, pretty much. I mean, there's a couple of areas where we're weak at the minute because of injuries and having to bring players in, but I still think those, the spine of the team and the quality we've got in midfield and up front in those areas will see us through this game. Obviously, we can't afford to be lapse with it. We've got to take the game to them early on. I think we've got to be front foot and try and get the job done early on, to make sure that there is no, lingering sort of nerves or chance that their crowd gets on side. Because I think obviously their crowd and their fans are very frustrated at the minute with how things are going. So I think we've got to play on that, start strong, put some pressure on them off the ball and take the game to them. And I think the quality will show through. Very hopeful of that, even though it feels a little bit like when we get to the game, I'll be more nervous than I am now, perhaps.
Absolutely. Raf, good day to you, sir. We were both hoping for 3-0, 4-0 against Brighton. It wasn't to be. Alas, not defeat at the City Ground. How are you feeling coming away from that one, and what are you hoping to see against Wolves?
I'm not too disheartened. I think it's just a little bit of a blip, and you could actually see a huge amount of endeavour in the team. Yeah, the first 20 minutes was an absolute, well, we've covered that all beforehand. So I could see enough in the team that I'm just going, look, you know what, Dyche is still in control of this. It's still absolutely fine. Confidence. The Wolves game is just such a classic Forest game to lose, and having won at Liverpool. And this kind of then goes back to my old adage of, is this Old Forest or New Forest kind of thing? And we really need the New Forest, which we saw a lot of last season, which was to go to the bottom half sides and smash them, which has got us to where we got to in the table of third and fourth, of only dropping 2 points, I think, from the bottom half teams in the first round of first half of fixtures. So I'm hoping for a little bit more of that. But yeah, it's a bit of a new manager bounce that they've also got. Edwards coming in, and it's also a bit of an unknown of exactly what he's going to do, how he's going to do it. And again, all the players are playing for the shirt, and that becomes quite dangerous. But I think, as Dan says, if we get the first goal, who knows? That might just actually break the crowd again, and then we're off to the races.
Some scratching their heads about the fact that Rob Edwards has decided to leave Middlesbrough, who are doing really well in the Championship, to go to Wolves, who look destined to be relegated. They still haven't got a win on the board in the Premier League this season, Richard. We've all seen the graphic on social media of L, 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 D, D, L, L. No W yet. And again, I think one or two of you have already said it would be typical Forest to go to Molineux and be the team that succumbs. And new manager bounce, I mean, you always expect that straight away. I think this would be his third game in charge. Maybe it's going to take a game or two for them to really kind of feel the benefit of having Rob Edwards as their manager. I mean, is this a banana skin waiting to happen in your eyes, Richard? What do Forest need to do going into this one to make sure that it doesn't turn out that way?
Well, I think Dyche has set the tone for what he knows needs to happen, because I think he's recognizing that it could be a banana skin, like you just mentioned. And so he's probably coordinating a plan to try to avoid that. I'm sure, like he said, they went into the game against Brighton with a plan. The first 20 minutes upended the plan, and they had to kind of redirect and or get back to what they had originally developed for that particular match. I'm assuming he's going to have something in place to try to mitigate this, sort of complacency that maybe happens, or this belief that you're walking into something that's a guaranteed win. So it's just a mindset thing. Like I've said before on the podcast, at times it felt like, especially under certain managers, particularly with Ange, there seemed to be this belief that, well, the goals are just going to come because the chances are coming, which is not completely ridiculous of a thought process, but ultimately it's what happened on our end of the pitch that was problematic. And because I think we've stabilized that more, yes, we had couple of frailties in the last match. We just seemingly let too easy of an opportunity develop and then unfold into a goal. But I think we're going to come in with a little bit different approach. Having Murillo back certainly makes a difference. Hopefully he's fit enough to where it seems like he can manage the box like he does. He can be in those lanes. He can clog those things up and prevent those kinds of things from happening. But like we did with Wolves last season when we played them away, in that first half, they had plenty of opportunities. We could have been down quite a bit in that match too. So it's, again, just staying locked in and not allowing ourselves to sort of drift into sort of, we've got this. So there's no concerns here, because, Strand Larsen's a good player. I'm sure Dan and Raf will speak to some of those things as to we have to be concerned about. But yeah, I tend to believe he's got them in the right headspace, and so they'll come into it with an understanding that they can't take this for granted because it is the Premier League.
Yeah, Strand Larsen's a player that I quite like, and had my eye on him in the summer, although he was on loan and the loan went permanent with Wolves. Although I still think there was a club trying to sign him out of there before the window ended. So we've got to definitely be aware of him. He missed a sitter or two, I think, last season, if memory serves, as well. Injury news from the club. Those that haven't seen Sean Dyche and the press conference yesterday, he expects Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White to be back and available for the game at Wolves. Bakwa and Zinchenko, it appears, are on the grass now and working with the team. It's a slowly but surely reintegration of them back into the side. Taiwo and Woody and Douglas Luiz, all not far away either. And it's a jam-packed schedule, Dan, coming up with December now full of fixtures. We need those squad players back quickly, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Still slightly unclear news on the progress of them. There's no real timelines there, and he almost listed them in order of who's closest to who's furthest away. And I think Chris Wood was still at the bottom of that list, which is the biggest surprise because we've never really found out what his injury is, have we? It's kind of like he came on against Chelsea, didn't he? When he probably shouldn't have, by the looks of it. And since then, he's just disappeared. So yeah, I think we're sort of lucky insofar as in the wide areas we'll have a debate that we have actually got a good choice. So we're lucky there, and we're lucky that obviously Jesus is staying fit and fulfilling that striker role. But yeah, we are still one player away from being in a pickle, I think, with the likes of fullback or striker, and we have to hope that a couple of those players come back in. Obviously, Douglas Luiz as well, a little bit down the list, would be a good option to obviously help in Europe, to rest Anderson and still have the front foot. So yeah, the injury list does look long, like compared to last season where we just had kind of 2 key players out. It's looking long at the minute.
We will go through our teams very soon. But before that, let's take a little look at the opposition by starting with this.
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
Okay, Raf, over to you.
Great. Okay. Is that up? Did I not share it yet? No, that's why. Sorry,
we can't see.
Yeah,
we're going to get into the Wolves preview. Raf just loading up his screen so we can go through a little bit of data points with him. We know Wolves haven't been great this season, so let's find out a little bit more about the whys and wherefores of that.
Cool. Yeah, sorry about that. Bit of a tech fail. So yeah, Wolves, and this is what I was kind of getting on about with Edwards, and we don't really know what we're going to get. But I did have a little bit of a chuckle to myself when looking through the Wolves team and what their actual transfer strategy has been. And I actually just think it is getting as many players with the same name as possible, put them all out on the field, and then it just causes chaos of who you're supposed to pick up. Because if you have a look at their Gomez's, they've got João, they've got Totti, they've got Rodrigo, takes Bueno, they've got Hugo, they've got Santiago Bueno, and they kind of play them as well. So if you're having a look at kind of the Chelsea game, they double Gomez and they double Bueno'd. And they're actually double Gomezing quite a lot. It's that back line of Gomez is quite key at that back. So Totti Gomez in their back as a centre back is quite key, and I expect him to start. And then you've got with my pronunciation, I'm not entirely too sure, but Krejcik is one of their kind of other useful kind of centre backs. I've seen Agbadou play when he first came in, and he is an absolute monster of a player. And if they can get him on fire, and he's playing quite a lot. So I expect probably they will, and this seems to be the thing that they do, is they have a back three. And I imagine that Agbadou and Gomez will be 2 of them, and then it's +1. You're going to have Johnson in goal, and that's kind of a bit of certainty of where we go. Midfield-wise, it's their 2 star players, which they've really got, which is Andre and João Gomez. And they're likely to be in that midfield, be it as a 2, be it as a 3, not entirely too sure. They probably will play some form of wing-back, or then kind of more traditional midfield left, midfield right, which we don't really see that much of in the Premier League, or just have them as wing backs. And that's when the other Bueno potentially will pop up on the left. And then your Tachucha will be that kind of right wing back or right kind of midfielder. So potentially that's what we've got. You're going to see Strand Larsen up top. I don't see why they wouldn't persist with him. He's as good/bad as anyone else for the team at the moment. And then it's a bit of a question. If they've got two in midfield, then they'll probably potentially play with two wingers and one up top. And who those might be, they're pretty much on rotation at the moment. So we don't really know who we'll particularly see. And that's where there's a bit of difficulty for Dyche trying to predict exactly how they're going to come out. But we probably know 6 to 7 of their team that are likely to play. When it comes to, we all know, when it comes to the table, they are absolutely rock bottom, got 2 points. It's all quite bleak. It's no surprise if we look at the form over the last 5 games. And this is where we really just need to not be Old Forest and Douai Forest per se. They've picked up a massive 0 points from their last 5 games, and they've got net -10 goal difference. So this is a game we should be winning if we turn up and just do what we do to the best of our ability. That should happen. However, their last game against Villa, they actually played really well, only lost by 1 goal, and actually looked in the game and were giving Villa a really, really good game. So we can't really take it from take anything for granted here. And there's 0 entitlement that should happen about going there and getting the 3 points. So if we have a look at how do they hurt other teams? And that's really kind of, well, their goals, when they are getting goals, are really coming from open play, and that's them countering, flooding forward. And that's pretty much it. How do they get forward? It's pretty much down. I'd say it's the wings, and it's not surprising given the fact that they have a back three. They usually play with those wing backs, or with those midfield left-rights, which means the fact you've got 38% down the left, 37 down the right, and only 25 that are going through the middle, although you have that quite excellent engine of Gomez and Andre that sit in that middle section. So that's very much kind of the structure of where they are. A lot of battles in the middle of the park. And actually, they're camped slightly when they're at home, slightly more by 1%, 28 to 27 in the opposition third than their own third. So that actually giving them a bit of the ball might play into our hands of how we like to kind of go forward quite quickly and getting back to the basics that we did successfully under Nuno. When it comes to their injuries, when it actually goals against, and you can see from open play, they've scored 4, they've conceded 20 from open play. They've conceded 4 from set pieces when only scoring 1 from set pieces. So it's not a massive Achilles heel compared to some other teams like us at one stage defensively of set pieces, but there can be some joy within there. And again, they are susceptible a little bit to the counter attack that sits within there. Injury-wise, if we go it, one of the Gomez's, Rodrigo, who has actually clocked up some minutes. He got injured back end of October. He's more of a kind of bench option, Matt Doherty kind of bench option. There's not really anything which is killing them from their injuries at all. Certainly not compared to us when we are missing actual first teamers for sure. Then if we have a look at the fixtures that I've got down here, which is again, since we've come back up and we have a look at it, and at the early stages we were losing to them. Then we had going through, so we lost 4-0, lost 1-0, then we had 1-1 draw, 1-1 draw, 1-1 draw, 2-2 draw, 1-1 draw, and then finally got a win in the last game that we played in January when we got that 3-0 at their gaff. But interestingly, and I don't really want to curse it like I did with Brighton, but if we have a look at the XG that we are producing in all of these games since we've come back up, we have a higher expected goals than Wolves, doesn't matter if we're home or away, in every single match, in every matchup that we've had with them. So when I'm saying, like I said with Brighton, if we can just go out and be us and play to our abilities, we should at least get the opportunities to score, and then it's about being clinical in front of goal, i.e. get Savona in the box and just let him shoot, pretty much. When we kind of get to then a look at, and this Greg's alluded to this, it's the whole loss, draw, loss. But then we even have a look at kind of the last 4 games, and what I've highlighted is they have not scored in the last 4 Premier League games. Fulham, Chelsea, Palace and Villa. Okay, 0 goals scored. That ports over to when we have a look at their goal scorers. Not a single person has scored more than 1 goal for them. So Strand Larsen, Hwang, their strikers, 1 goal apiece. And then you're looking at kind of 2 defenders that have scored a goal in Bueno, the central defender, and Krejci as well. And then you've got Rodrigo Gomez, who's injured, and then Molineux as well, who's got a goal. Their assists, again, only 1 assist that are across 4 players. So it's not like we have a particular threat per se that is where all their creativity is coming from, where all the goals are coming from. But it's not like it's suddenly spread amongst everyone. When we saw Brighton, they had 12 different goal scorers, right? So it's just about, I don't think we worry about them too much. We should just worry about ourselves and being the best version of ourselves. We look at who's, unsurprisingly, they've only got 1 player on the sofa score that's averaged above a 7, and that is their goalkeeper. And then we have a look at 2 of their central defenders, which are the other 2 most high rated, with a 6.87 for Krejci, and then for Santiago Bueno, who's the other central defender, so not Agbadou, but then he's also a 6.86. So then finally, if we just go to the heat maps, and these are probably the key players, a little bit of what Dan's going to come on to. Andre, absolutely all over the pitch. It's in between the 2 boxes. He's not going to be box crashing our box whatsoever. He does more work in his own half than he does in our half, but he's absolutely everywhere. Central, left, right, bit more left than right, but he's going to be that massive engine in the middle. João Gomez, even more insane distribution, absolutely everywhere. Very much favouring the left over the right, but he still floats over to the right. And it's all of that action very much in between the 2 boxes. He has a tiny bit more of a footprint in our box, and he certainly is doing a lot of work defensively as well inside his own box, inside their own box as well. When we have a look at Strand Larsen, that is the famous red dot on the centre circle of someone waiting to break with the ball, waiting and not really helping that much out, defending like we see from a Wood or we saw from Welbeck getting around. But he does move around the opposition half. He's not just sitting in the box. He is moving around left, right, centre, but there is a large concentration around our penalty spot because he is trying to be a little bit of that poacher when their wingers are doing what they're doing. But I watched him a lot last season. He can't hit a barn door. Again, touch wood. I hope I haven't cursed it. But he certainly hasn't been prolific. And I would really, really want our defence to shut them out. And so that just deal with them in midfield. Let Anderson, Sangare, maybe with a bit of help from somewhere else, own that midfield, and then just keep Strand Larsen. And if there's one other striker that's playing with them, that's how they're doing it. Keep them quiet. That's really it.
Okay. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. Let's take that off. Okay. We are doing the Wolves preview. And just quickly, I want to mention our competition giveaway on the recent episode, the one with Mark Turner. Which player from Forest history did Mark say he would want on the current team? That's the question we want the answer to. You can only enter by sending your answer to us on email. It's talkingredspod@gmail.com. I'll say it again. We're looking for the name of the player that Mark Turner chose that he would want on the current Forest team. From Forest's history, we've had some wrong answers, and we've also had 1 or 2 doubling down on their wrong answers as well. So I would say to you, guys...
Dashville.
Yeah, it's not Dashville. I would say to you, don't get confused with when Mark is picking his favourite 11. He talks about lots of players when he picks his favourite 11. So don't get confused with that section. There's a specific question in the lightning round from Richard, and the answer is in that section. So don't get confused. which player did he want on the current team from our history, talkingredspod@gmail.com. We are going to be revealing the answer, I think, probably by the weekend-ish, I'd imagine. So you've still got a bit of time to enter one entry per person. All right, let's carry on doing what we're doing.
I'm a stat man.
Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. E Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som.
Take it away, Danscape.
Thank you. I will try and take a look at, obviously, the Wolves' turnaround under Rob Edwards after a massive 2 games. I think if anyone else was trying to tell me that you could tell anything off 2 games, I'd be saying, what are you on about? But I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to do it anyway because that's all we've got. So Wolves under Edwards. So what I've done is I've plotted out I suppose their rankings across these skills and things before he came in, and then their ranking over just the last 2 games, right, against the league. And so if you look down the left-hand column against the things in the middle, so you've got obviously their form. We know they were bottom of the league. They still are bottom of the league. Their actual performance within that, they've jumped up a couple of places, right? So their performance was actually kind of 18th to 16th. Now, performance is subjective. This is kind of like if you were building a dream football team, this is how they'd play, you know, lots of domination of the ball and chances and not giving the opposition chances, but doesn't necessarily lead to results, which is why they're bottom, not 16th. But it shows that there's a slight uptick, right? So there's a slight uptick that they're not the worst team in the league over these last couple of games. The finishing is slightly up, although they haven't scored any goals, which probably just means that they've managed to get more shots on target than they were. So they're getting a little bit closer to scoring one of those elusive goals. The goalkeeping scores up by sort of 4 places. They are still making a lot of mistakes, though. They ranked 20th for mistakes before Rob Edwards came in, and they're still ranking 20th for mistakes since he's been in. Set pieces has improved over these last 2 games. Again, just 2 games, but they've gone from 20th to 13th place in the league for set pieces. Their S-Hauser has gone up.
Where do you think you're going, shit house?
Yeah, exactly. So he's brought a bit of that with him, bit of Cloughie energy. Box defending's up a little bit. Less long balls, though, so they are adapting to play slightly less direct under Edwards. A lot more ball carrying, which is interesting. I think that's obviously the alternative to playing long, passes is going to be that you carry the ball at the pitch yourself. So they're changing their style slightly in that way over only 2 games. Wing play being down 11 is interesting. So wing play really is sort of how many crosses you're putting into the box, right? How often you choose to just cross instead of perhaps being more patient around the box and looking for passes and carrying the ball into the box. So they in the past, they were doing a lot of that, right? They were putting balls in the box early. Whereas again, in these 2 games, they've been a bit more patient. So I think there are signs that there's this change of style, that they're a little bit more controlled in possession. Again, it is just 2 games. So that's kind of like where they are. Like I said, none of that's turned into points on the board for them, but there is signs that there's improvements there from what they were doing before and a slight change of style. And I suppose doing something similar for obviously Dyche, which is over a longer period of time now. So we touched on this last time in the rankings, but this is over a 5-game period that Dyche has been in. So again, this is us this season on the left before Dyche and then on the right after Dyche. And you see the good news is there's a lot less red numbers there, right? We've improved on everything. Like pretty much everything is a green apart from ball carrying, which is if you like the opposite of what we saw with Wolves. So going down the list quickly, chance creation, we've gone from 13th to 3rd in these 5 games, which is a big sign. Obviously, we were struggling to create much. We had chances under Ange, but overall we are actually creating better chances of late, like clearer cut, higher XG chances, I think is probably the key. Finishing's up. That's absolutely key. The fact that we're actually taking our chances, which we know we weren't. S-Hauser is up 13 positions.
Shit out.
17th.
Shit out.
Exactly. 17th to
There are 3 shit houses. We're up by 13 on that. That's a huge climb.
It is a huge climb. So that's restoring our kind of, again, last season we were top of that league for a lot of it. So we're back to what we were doing before. The box defending's up. The long ball, mentioned this on the last preview. Our long ball, we are now the team that plays the most long balls in the league over these last 5 games. You could call them long passes, you can call it direct play as opposed to just hoofing the ball up, but it's what we're doing. And as like I say, the opposite of Wolves is that the ball carrying for us is now down, right? We're less likely to try and carry the ball into the opposition final third. We're more likely to just play the ball into it. And a lot of other stuff, again, dueling's up, no nonsense football's up, aerial dominance is up, we're pressing a bit more. But what we're not doing is necessarily trying to control the pitch. And that's why that performance score is actually slightly down, because we're kind of playing like we're playing more like a team in that bottom half of the league, if you like, would play to get results, as opposed to trying to play like Man City would play to get results. And then this is just quickly looking at the Brighton game as to what we, what we did well and didn't do well. So this is our last 6 games. Don't worry about too many numbers on the right-hand side. This is like, again, scores out of 10. So if you got a 10, that's one of our best performances for that metric since we got promoted. And if it's a 1 or below, it's one of our worst performances for that metric since we got promoted. So there were some good things against Brighton in terms of like final third possession, our kind of average position of where we had the possession, and the crosses we put into the box. They were all like, 8s, 9s out of 10. So they're some of our best performances in that respect. And I think Dyche mentioned that after the game about crosses into the box being one of the measures that he's looking at, which is a sign of quite direct football. But then at the other end, at the bottom, which is the kind of defensive metrics, we were one of our worst performances for keeping teams out of our box. Like our box vulnerability score, which is just a percentage of touches in the final third that are in the penalty box, was very low, right? 0.9 out of 10. Crosses faced in the box was 0.1 out of 10. So again, we faced some of the most crosses we've ever faced. And our set piece vulnerability is 0.5 out of 10. So that's one of our worst performances for teams being able to convert set pieces into shots. So there are some good signs, but then also some signs that you perhaps wouldn't expect from a Dyche team around crosses and set pieces and all that kind of thing as well to work on.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, the Cheese Trader is the sponsor of our competition. You can contact Stu Freestone on Instagram, or the card is on the studio board, as those of you that can see it. I'll get my teeth back in. Those of you that can see it. Those of you that can't, you can go to the bio on YouTube. He is a Forest fan. Support your local businesses, support your Forest supporter businesses wherever you can. The Chief Trader in York. All right, let's think about how Forest are going to approach this game. Let's get our teams up. We've all gone very, very, very similar. Richard, you can kick us off with what you think we will do tomorrow night.
Yep, the classic. No shock from anyone here. The 4-2-3-1 formation is what I'm looking at, which seems to be our favorite formation. Clearly, especially against the Wolves team, you can be a little bit more attacking, a little bit more front foot. But I've gone for the typical back four that we've seen: Savona on the right back, Milenkovic, Murillo, Williams. Then you've got a midfield of Sangari and Anderson. You've got Hutchinson coming in for his first start with Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi, and then Igor Jesus up top. And this shouldn't surprise anybody. I think the way that this sets up, we can do quite a bit. We've got those two guys in midfield who like to duel a little bit, and you've got some of the precision passing from Sangari. You've seen the vision that Anderson's developed over just this last season plus. And then I just think with Amari Hutchinson being the main factor here in terms of our ability, as Dan talked about, again, you got to weigh and balance. Is it good to increase your ball carrying so significantly that it maybe puts some defensive frailty in there in terms of the winger dropping back and helping defend at certain points? Based off of what Raf said on the right-hand side of as Wolves attack our left-hand side, Chachua is insanely quick, like as fast as Alanga kind of quick. So you've got to be very cognizant of what that's going to do to you and how you can maybe have to double up to keep him at bay. But I would say from Hutchinson's standpoint, just looking at his goal contributing actions, shot contributing actions, ball carrying, progressive carries and things of that nature, like he's dwarfing Ndoye right now. Does that necessarily mean Ndoye's done badly? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that. I think there's a different way of approaching things with Ndoye that maybe is not the same clearly as Hutchinson. But I just think in terms of our ability to get completely front foot, you've got two very creative guys who are really good on the ball on both sides. And Chachua is not, I would say, the most adept defender. He's more of a going forward type fullback. So you have the opportunity, I think, with Hudson-Odoi as well on that left-hand side to exploit that and be able to get behind those lines and create problems. And then Hutchinson, we've seen him. His crosses at times have been a little bit, suspect, but he's making the effort to find space and try to get the ball in the box to exploit that. Because we know Jesus is good in the air. He's got the propensity to do that. So that's my team, Greg. I feel confident this is the first time we're going to see Hutchinson. He's been knocking on the door for a start. So I'm hoping that's what we'll see, so we can get front foot right off the bat and have a guy with a little bit of trickery, a little bit of industry on that right-hand side, create problems for their fullbacks and get the ball in the box.
Okay, thank you. Just going to take those off just for 1 second and say thank you very much to Forest Fan TV. Forest, and he says, love the show, guys. You Reds, thank you very much for the donation into the pot. Really appreciate you, my friend. All right, the next team is mine, and it's the same as Richard's, basically. So I'm going to quickly kind of jump in and say that I think Hutchinson is deserving of a start. I think I was kind of wishing to hold him back in the last game just to kind of get something from him off the bench again. And we did get something from him off the bench again. Okay, we didn't score, but I think he did his job. That ball from Sells that he managed to keep in with his head and takes the byline to drag it back for Igor Jesus. Igor Jesus on another day puts that in the back of the net. It was a good save from Verbruggen. But Hutchinson is doing what we're asking of him. He hasn't gone off and sulked. It would have been really hard for him to not be in the Europa squad and maybe wonder why he came to the club. But he's on the up. And I think when players are in good form, and he's shown that, let's give him a start away at the worst team in the Premier League, because I want to see Forest on the front foot, very assertive from the off. I don't want passive Forest. I want front foot Forest, like we did last season when we broke away with Anderson to Gibbs White to Alanga to back to Gibbs White to score. Gibbs White's bound to score again against Wolves. So him coming back into the team in the number 10 position, or staying in the team, I should say, is really important. And Igor Jesus, we keep saying it, he's due a goal. Well, listen, he does lots of things right. He can score goals. Let's keep our fingers crossed that, against the very frail Wolves, you've considered a lot of goals from open play. And we've been better at open play recently under Deitch. We've shown that we can convert from open play. Let's get Igor Jesus and Hutchinson linking up again. Hudson-Odoi fills the other wing spot for me. I think Dan N'Doye has disappointed, I'll be honest with you. I talked about him as a player that I think has moments in games. He hasn't had bigger spells in games of good play. So for me, Dan N'Doye drops out. He's still an option off the bench. And, sometimes you take a player out and it gives them a bit of a boost up their backside. He needs to maybe take a breather. Hudson-Odoi is for me, first choice winger. He's coming back from injury. He looked lively when he came off the bench as well. So he starts the same back four. Sangare has pretty much put himself in as a first choice next to Anderson now, and fair play to him. He is a player that can find a forward ball into players' feet like possibly no one else. He darts it into players, and he picks out players really, really well. So I'm enjoying the Sangare Anderson link up, hoping no one gets injured, because the injury list is still long. We need those players back. So that's my team as well. Same as Richards. I'm in for Hutchinson to start. And next we have Danscape with his team. He's got a slightly different take.
Yeah, I guess so. I think obviously the back five is what it is at the minute. I still have concerns about Savona. I think Brighton sort of targeted him a bit on in the game the other day by sort of playing long on the other side of the pitch and then trying to draw our midfield and our team across, so that he was a bit isolated. And sometimes he dealt with it, and sometimes, obviously, like for the goal, he struggled to get the positioning right. So I think that'll come onto why I've sort of picked the wingers I have. Like, for example, I don't think Savona made a single tackle in that game against Brighton. He didn't get, he couldn't quite get close to their players to kind of influence and snap out some of the attacks. So I think you do need to provide some protection on that side of the pitch is where I'm getting to with it. So I think Sangare can do that in midfield, but I think N'Doye offers that in a way that Hutchinson perhaps doesn't. And so it perhaps depends how much you think we'll dominate this game against Wolves, right? If you think we're going to go out there, have all the ball and have plenty of time to recover if we lose the ball and really pin Wolves back, then yeah, I think Hutchinson is the man for that job. I think if you expect that it'll be a little bit more even and perhaps we'll sit back and try and hit them on the break and so on, then I wonder whether you need Ndoye just with that bit more experience to drop into position and assist on that right hand side to support Savona a little bit more in this game. So that's perhaps why I've stuck with Ndoye on the right and then gone Hudson-Odoi on the left. I'm not, I think we're in a good position where I don't think there's actually too much to worry about. If whichever winger comes in from a manager's point of view, I think obviously he'll pick it based more on this kind of team setup and what he thinks will work for the team. From a fan's point of view, we want the excitement of Hutchinson and some of these players that look so lively. At some point, he's going to have to start so we can see if the manager's concerns at times are right or wrong, and then we can see whether Hutchinson can deliver it for 90 minutes and whether we lose anything defensively. And at some point, we've got to suck it and see. And it feels like this might be the time. The trouble is, it feels like such a big game to do something we haven't really done this season. Is this the right time to mix it up when you're away from home in a game, which feels like if we were to lose this game, it feels like the narrative would all be very different afterwards. So I'm sticking with tried and tested on that basis, really.
Okay, Richard, I think has got to depart from us. So I'll let Richard quickly give us his score prediction before he goes.
I hate saying this, but at least it's a clean sheet. I'm going to say it's an ugly 1-0 win. I think it's, to Dan's point, I think they played Villa pretty close. So I think there's going to be something sort of akin to that, where we find our way through, get a Jesus goal finally in the Premier League. But, for the most part, keep it relatively close. And so we'll win 1-0. Thank you, guys.
Okay, buddy. We'll see you soon. Thanks very much, Rich. Richard and I both think Amari Hutchinson should start. One or two are joining us in the comments. Wolfie says, drop Ndoye, start Hutchinson. Raf, your team's coming up next. Which way are you seeing it? Let's have a look.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same as yourself and Rich as well. I'm starting Hutch. The reason why I'm doing it is I think we need to score first to subdue the crowd and just let their heads drop. Hutchison raises the tempo of the whole team when he comes on. Everyone is quicker. The ball starts moving quicker. It's just he's a key of the DNA of this team now to do with tempo of our play. So that's why. And I just think Jesus needs the instruction to attack the 6-yard box. Get Hudson-Odoi and Hutchinson to whip balls across that 6-yard box and him just attack it. So that's it from me. The only other thing I'd like to say is very quickly, just as kind of like because I think we're closing up. Final remarks is from me is that Dyche may not have been heard by the powers that be in the Premier League, but it looks hot off the presses that Infantino and FIFA have listened to Dyche. So we've got screwed over from corners not being corners and having goals from them. For the World Cup, Infantino is bringing in VAR to double check validity of corners that lead to goals and chalk off the goal if the corner should never have been given in the first place.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Is that breaking news?
Small victories.
Is that breaking news? I haven't seen that.
Yep, just came out. Okay,
that sounds good. Sounds great. We possibly about to do a pod in one of the quickest we've ever done. Richard's had to go and Raf's got to leave as well. But I will quickly say to one or two of you in the comments as well. Let's go. DJ Tone says he's predicting a 2-0 win. Gibbs White and Eagle Jesus. Will from WT Analysis is thanking Raf for the pint from Thursday. Will, you're a legend, an absolute legend. We love your work. If you aren't following at WT Analysis on X, then go and do so straight away because it's really good work from Will. You think that's possibly it? Pat Brett says if we win, Brighton will fade into the memory banks. If we lose, alarm bells will start ringing. And I'm not quite sure that I'm ready for alarm bells if we lose. It's one of those games, guys, where, Wolves are looking for their first win of the season, and it would be very, very forest for us to, be the team that they come and stuck against. I don't think so. We've had Richard's 1-0 prediction. Raf, did you give us a score prediction? Let's hear it.
No, same as me. 1-0, get it done, and then get out.
Lovely jubbly. Daniel San?
Well, just to be different, I'll go 2-1 to us. Maybe we let them get one goal that they haven't managed for a while, just to keep them happy.
And I'll say 3-0 to Forest, as usual. I'm still hanging my hat on that 3-0. We did it last year. And listen, I mean, all the ingredients are there with this team. We go to Liverpool and win 3-0, and Wolves, we've just listened to your fantastic opposition report. I mean, they're terrible. So it's got to be 3-0 to Forest. Igor Jesus is going to score, guys and girls. Thank you very much for tuning in to Talking Reds for the match preview against Wolves. Please do hit like and subscribe, folks. We really appreciate your support. So liking and subscribing is a really good way of showing your support. Please do go ahead and click the necessary buttons. Don't forget the shirt giveaway is still live. talkingredspod@gmail.com to get your answers in. If you're not sure how to enter, then you have to rewind this and go and find out. So all eyes are on the Premier League. It's midweek fixtures in December. Kicking off tonight, I think, with 1 or 2 games, and we're on tomorrow night. So we'll be back to do a review episode the day after, so Thursday. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for when that's coming. In the meantime, come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.